good afternoon, and a warm welcome on behalf of the Wisdom Seed, who are delighted to also welcome Shechen Rabjam Rinpoche this afternoon to teach us. My name is Alison Driscoll, and it is my honor and delight to introduce Rinpoche to all of you. He's here for the first time in this region, and we hope the first of many times. For those of you unfamiliar with the Wisdom Seed, we're a small group of eclectic Tibetan Buddhist practitioners in this area who realized a number of years ago a void that High Lamas might go to New York, they might go to Boston, but they weren't coming to Philly. So our mission is to ensure to properly host High Lamas in this area. And thank you for being here to show that that's appreciated. Shechen Rabjam is the grandson of Gyabje Dilgo Khyentse Rinpoche, as many of you know, one of the foremost Tibetan Buddhist masters of the 20th century. Rinpoche grew up with Dilgo Khyentse, and from the age of 3 began receiving teachings and transmissions from him. With Dilgo Khyentse's passing in 1991, as the Dharma heir, Shechen Rabjam has assumed responsibility for transmitting Dilgo Khyentse's vast and profound teachings and bringing his vision for the preservation of Tibetan Buddhist teachings and culture to full fruition. As part of these responsibilities, Shechen Rabjam has been the abbot of all of the Shechen monasteries and nunneries, I'm happy to say, the hub of which is in Nepal and includes a shedra for academics, tanka painting, sacred dancing, rituals and chants, and a medical clinic. To fulfill the vision of Dilgo Khyentse, he has also established the Dilgo Khyentse Fellowship to educate, inspire, and preserve Tibetan Buddhist teachings and culture in all of its forms. We have brochures about the fellowship available on the registration table for those who are interested or would like to make a donation to support this mission. This afternoon, Rinpoche will offer teachings on resting in the nature of mind, essential meditation instructions, his commentary on Dilgo Khyentse's teaching entitled Brilliant Moon. Copies of this have been made available to you. We hope you all have one here today as a gift of the Wisdom Seed. Thank you, and now, Rinpoche, we request you to turn the wheel of the Dharma.
Sanje Gyunjin Shenyi Shensu, Zezhen Yishin, Namra Jambe Yang, Toden Shenda Keru Wambache, Bemantonga, Limbara Sowa, and okay, let's relax a little bit. Thank you. Now, I don't give much Dharma talks, especially in the West, so I don't have much to say. So this is the already like fifth talk, so I think I finished everything I have to say. Anyway, thank you all of you coming here, and many of you come here because somehow many of you met Jamshe Tingpo Rinpoche, and many of you heard about him, and somehow many of you have some connection directly or indirectly to Khyentse Rinpoche, because Khyentse Rinpoche is, first of all, he is a non-sectarian master. He is a student from all the 4 major schools of Tibetan Buddhism. And these days, most of the Rinpoches and Lamas who travel around the West and give teachings, somehow most of them have lineage directly from Khyentse Rinpoche. So therefore, it sort of makes us somehow in the same lineage or same mandala. So here, I spent many years with Khyentse Rinpoche since I was 5 till 25, till he passed away. And I always feel that I feel very, very lucky to be with him so many years. But I wasn't he's one of the best students. So therefore I'm still not enlightened. But physically I'm sort of becoming like him. Not inwardly, not much development, but physically, yes, he was big and strong. His Holiness Dalai Lama said in his interview, he said, "Oh, Khyentse Rinpoche, physically very well-built body, always smiling, always smiling." So like that. So I feel very fortunate, and many of you, I think, from the different Sangha groups here. So like I said, somehow, because of our teachers, we're sort of bound spiritually. And so I don't think you will need any more instruction on meditations, because I think most of you been studying with Tibetan masters more than 20 years. So many of you already heard so many teachings from the great masters. So how did our great masters become what they are, or who they are? I don't think it's anything to do with the Tibetan genes. I think they became who they are and what they are because they practice. They studied, they practice. And I'm sure also Tibet environment, also very peaceful, very calm. So maybe it helped enhance a lot to progress in their practice. So likewise, if we want to progress in our practice, progress in our kind of inner realization, then I think we have to follow in their footsteps and do practice more. So I thought maybe I will just encourage you guys a little bit importance of practicing, how important it is. So just someone who can talk well, someone who can entertain is not enough, I think. You have lots of TV hosts can entertain. Oprah Winfrey, even I get hooked to. So it's not about how much you can entertain, but how much you can actually give insight. So just to remind you that, of course, all the Buddha's teaching, it is focused on training our mind, all the teachings of Buddha. So therefore, I think all the Tibetan masters, so many, many years since Buddha Dhamma introduced into Tibet, they are always trying to practice, try to look inwards, and try to kind of not only practice, but then write instructions, texts, how to practice. So for many, many hundreds of years, their main thing was to develop inner realization. Same time, we had a nice tour other day in Philadelphia. So when you are signing the Constitution, what is it? Declaration of Constitution, Independence, which is wonderful, we all enjoy. Same time, maybe Jigme Lingpa was writing the Longchen Yingtik in Tibet. So if you look at from that perspective, we sort of went different directions, put our, focus in different directions. But of course, one had outer development result, another side had inner development result. So now it's sort of come together, thanks to many masters who practice and flee Tibet and then come to West. So in a way, thanks to the Chinese problem in China, so that all the lamas came around the world and spread the Dharma. So in a way, if you look at it from positive side, of course a lot of monasteries destroyed and a lot of tragedy happened in Tibet, but the good side, the Dharma came to the West. Without that, maybe it might take longer. So, because they come to the West, and then we able to receive the teachings. So I think most important thing is to the teachings we have received. So many teachings, so many instructions, so many books. So I think most important thing is like really how much we can really put into, observe the teaching and help us, change us. So, like I mentioned before, it is to, train our mind to reduce our negative emotions. So after many years of practice, many years of meditation, if we become sort of better human being, if we have a less kind of attachment, less desire, less hatred, less anger, then I think we are sort of going in the right direction. And then even though we spend 20 or 30 years with such an enlightened master, if we still have those emotions sort of very strong in us, then maybe our practice is not going very well. So I don't think it's doesn't really matter how high the title of the practice is, Mahamudra, Dzogpa Chenpo, or it's just simple bodhicitta, mind training. Whatever it really helps us, or whatever can really change us, I think that practice, more relevant to us. And of course, there is no kind of shortcut without progress slowly, without taming our mind, without reducing the negative emotions. I don't think we will have there's a kind of direct shortcut. So being with Khyentse Rinpoche, I meet many practitioners, many of his students. Well, each one is different. Some, they just simple practice, lojong, mind training practice. We have a saying in Tibetan, when the circumstances arise, then you will see how good the practitioner is. So when everything is going smooth, we don't really know how well we are doing. When some circumstances arise, then if we can handle it, and that means we have some kind of achieve. It's like a good horseman. If you're very good at riding horse, in Tibet, they can ride horse even without the saddle. No matter how much horse jump, the people can always handle it. So likewise, when some circumstances arise, when some difficulty we face in our life, then that time I think we have to utilize what we have learned, what we have heard, what we have practiced. Khyentse Rinpoche always advise on mingle your mind with Dharma. Mingle your mind with Dharma. I think that means whatever circumstances arise, somehow it should remind us of practice. Then if our practice it stays in altar when you are sitting, when you are in reality world life, then if we cannot control the emotions, lose control of anger, so then I think it's not really helping. So mingle your mind with Dharma is whenever some kind of circumstances arise, then we always try to bring. So circumstances doesn't always mean bad circumstances. Good circumstances, bad circumstances, whatever. Kiduk ronyam. Even in good circumstances, something good happened to you. We should always try to think, oh, thanks to the Buddha Dharma, thanks to Three Jewels. And if bad circumstances arise, oh, due to my karma, purify my karma, like that. In Tibetan it says Kiduk lamcher. Kibo means happiness. Also bring that into a path without feeling guilt. Then if some difficulty comes in life, also if you can bring that into path. Then how to bring that into path? All the teachings talk about that. And one very useful, I think, in the mind training practice, they always says how to handle when some difficult thing arises in our life. There are like main three kind of methods: using antidote of negative emotions, by which we sort of fight against the negative emotions. Then another one, by recognizing the negative emotions and thoughts, then using that into your practice. Then it may be kind of higher Vajrayana view, using the negative emotions or negative things, transforming them into wisdom. So all these methods are taught. I'm sure most of you heard many, many times. So now I think that we can really put into practice. And that way, I think we will see how we progress. And we will be the best judge ourselves, because nobody can see our mind, how it goes inside. It can look like a good practitioner from outwardly, then inwardly full of negative things. Sometimes we see the people doing circumambulation around the stupa with the mala. This is Asian people I'm talking about, in Nepal or Bhutan. And then the mala is in one hand, and then the whole full time they are gossiping. Someone is good, someone is not good. Did you hear that? And then your rosary became very smooth, but our mind is not smooth. So this can happen. Outwardly, you never know. Outwardly, you look, oh, very diligent, very kind of. Then sometimes we can sort of, with our kind of pride and negative emotions, can make us do practice. Because if I don't practice, people will criticize. So then all our intentions wrong. So like that, I think, yangda yangdo rangi sem tana chidar chicha yangda lamdo. Again and again, we have to analyze our mind, how it's going. So we'll be the best judge of our own mind. Then again, also, our Dhamma brothers and sisters can also kind of, if you're good spiritual brothers and sisters, genuinely kind of carry each other, then you can point out a little bit, but be careful. So common problem we all face. Now we know how precious Dharma is. We know how important it is to practice. But somehow we don't feel like practicing. So this question was put up once to Khyentse Rinpoche. I remember in Nepal, how can I really engage myself into practice? I know how to practice. I have received all the instruction. I have bell and dorje, everything. But how can I really engage myself into practice? So I remember Rinpoche saying, bringing our mind into practice, it is the thinking of impermanence. Always try to remember impermanence. So even in the sutra, Buddha said the monk's attitude should always towards impermanence. So likewise, I think impermanence, I think, is really kind of key, or the main kind of mentor, I don't know if that's English word, right? To put our mind into practice. Because now we have seen many of our friends who are no longer with us. They were there last year, they are not here this year. And we never know when we're going to live. Once somebody asked, went to see Dilgo Rinpoche, and this guy was crying. And Rinpoche said, what happened? He said, doctor told me I will only live 3 years. Then he was crying. And Dilgo Rinpoche said, good for you. You know you're going to live 3 years. I don't know whether I live till tomorrow. So like that, I think as a practitioner, every day, I think we have to sort of remind us impermanence. And then that sort of, are we ready when the time comes? Sooner or later we have to go through. So I think this kind of attitude, this kind of thinking would really bring our mind into Dharma and how important it is. I read somewhere, it's not a Buddhist magazine or Dharma magazine, I read somewhere, they said that people make preparations way ahead of time, especially if you are going for a holiday or Hawaii or somewhere. You already start making reservation, the hotel, booking of the aeroplane, and but it's a short holiday. It's like 1 month or maximum, or 1 week, and you come back. But there's a holiday which you are never going to come back. We don't really prepare. No preparation for that. So I thought it's very interesting. Non-Buddhist magazine, even they say like that. So I think thinking of impermanence will turn our mind into Dharma, turn our mind into engaging into practice. So of course, all the four thoughts in the Ngondro practice are very important. So many of you already in what we call in the path practicing. So I think as you might already know, but the path is very clearly laid out, step by step. And that is layout is done by, like I mentioned before, the best mind engineers designed. It's not just somebody randomly decided, saying, that sounds better, or that sounds easier. Starting with like shamatha practice, which is other day I mentioned, I think very much relevant in our kind of modern society, where we have so many things going on. And I think that calmness of our mind is the first step, kind of basis for all the practice, all the kind of the place to grow the like seed. So base of shamatha practice. And many Rinpoches who lived in the West, who know the Western people, who has know the Western culture, emphasize in shamatha, which not so much in Tibet. Because I understand when I go to Tibet, the area is naturally shamatha. There's not much distraction. In fact, if you're in Tibet, if you don't practice, there's nothing to do. So here we have TV or something. There's nothing. You have to practice. Otherwise, boring. So the environment in Tibet is a little bit different. Then I think the West, many lamas introducing shamatha practice as a start, preliminary. And then, of course, most of the structure then comes Ngondro practice, preliminary. And there's accumulation, there's a number, there's a postation, mandala. Of course, all those things are important. But I think Ngondro, the real Ngondro, is the 4 thoughts or 4 changes of mind. What should turn our mind into Dharma? To become a really good practitioner, proper practitioner, the 4 thoughts should be the main reason why you turn our mind into Dharma. That's how we will have a kind of a sense of renunciation of the samsara. Otherwise, it's not really becoming a kind of real serious practitioner. So precious human life, which you heard so many times, precious human life, impermanence, law of cause and effect, and then the suffering of the samsara. So these 4 thoughts, I think we should really put importance in them. Not only sort of the numbers becomes the most important. I think most important is the 4 changes. And these 4 thoughts, I'm sorry, maybe I'm not saying the name properly because my translation went to Croatia. Only this body and mind, speech is gone. So, so I think it's 4 thoughts. Yeah, 4 thoughts. Is it 4 thoughts? Okay, so I think the 4 thoughts should really, by thinking on the 4 thoughts, that sort of turns our mind into Dharma. Of course, all of us, I think we can say, who are not raised as a Buddhist, who come to Buddhist, come because they have some kind of understanding of samsara, and then they want some realization, kind of some notion of what we call the renunciation. That's already there. Little bit different from the monastic, where we put the young monks in the monastery. They have no idea what the samsara is. They have no idea of renunciation. So we teach them. So then some of them get into Dharma, and some of them are more interested in relative world, so they leave the monastery. But you guys already have that kind of thing when you join that, when you come to the study of Buddha Dharma, because there's some sense of something which is not right in the samsaric world. That's how you come in. So that thought, I think we should not forget. What brings us into Dharma? Because of some kind of dissatisfaction, feeling of samsara, that what turns into. So in order to have kind of more engaged into Dharma, I think we have to remind that oneself. The best way is to focusing on the 4 thoughts of mind. And I also, sometimes I joke with the friends, because the classic way of, the 4 thoughts, precious human life, there are 5 favorable and 5 unfavorable, 18 this and that. But if you think from a modern science point of view, that how the evolution slowly start from Matthew is my good friend, so I always ask the modern science point of view. I'm very interested how the small cell slowly turn into fish, and how fish slowly turn into kind of something moving, slowly became, And then he said there are millions of chances of that cell not becoming human. So there are millions of chances that we become a mushroom or we become a tree. So from that perspective, if you look at what we are, so much human intelligent, so much, potential in our brain. So I think it's not just born, live, die. So not much meaning. Then again, we are a little bit kind of better kind of tree. Just be there. A tree at least brings oxygen. We consume oxygen and pollute the world and live. So not so much used to be born in a human. So like that, from modern point of view, I think whatever makes us turn into Dharma, we should look from different angles and think from different angles. From science point of view, makes sense that how important. Then impermanence, everything changing. Impermanence is not always bad news. Because of impermanence, poor becomes rich. Because of impermanence, rich becomes poor. Because of impermanence, everything can function like that. So, everything. The impermanence, I think, is something that is always changing, constantly changing. We talk about, last year during this time we did that. Last year during this time doesn't exist. Last year is gone. This year is new. Tomorrow is something else. So like that, I think, contemplating on impermanence, the changes, everything changes. Understanding of everything impermanent, changing, I think, with this kind of attitude or this kind of thinking in the mind, we start looking everything a little bit differently. We start looking at the world differently. Like going into a food supermarket after lunch and before lunch. You go before lunch, you buy all the food stuff. You go after lunch, you don't want to look at the food stuff. So if you look at the world with the impermanent in mind, you will start looking at the world a little bit differently. And without this impermanent understanding, you will start looking differently. This is just my thoughts. So like that. Then, law of the cause and effect. Nothing becomes something. Everything has cause and effect. So even a small thing, I think we said that even a small kind of small spark of fire can burn the mountain of grass. So likewise, I think the law of cause and effect, very important. I think we have to be very kind of careful. And I think really makes sense because law and cause and effects very much depends on our intention. So that, I think, again, checking our intention. Whatever we do, I think, have with a positive intention. And our mind can be very, very tricky, so that very careful. Sometimes we do some kind of big generosity, and then if our intention is purely generosity, want to help, or you want to be in the Facebook. So these things, can be very, very tricky. So karma always works in a mysterious way. There was this, once one man was interviewed in France on the radio, and and that person was interviewed just before my friend, Dharma brother Matthew. Matthew was waiting outside, and this person was interviewed on the radio. And the reason why he was interviewed is that in his life, he's been through 40 different tragedies, but he still survived. Wherever there's a big fire, he happened to be there. Wherever there's a big earthquake, he happened to be there. Where there's a big accident, he happened to be there. And then he was admitted to hospital. The nurse gave him the wrong diagnosis. Then something like that. One after another, 40 different tragedies. So this is the kind of people we should now go with together. What I meant is the mainly kind of karma. That's quite interesting. Because sometimes karma is like we can't really see. It's something happening in the future. But when you hear this kind of story, it's really like karma. You understand more of karma. And then when you hear the different people who went through when there was a tragedy or something, each and every one has a different story. Some people just left 2 seconds before. Some people just arrived 1 minute before and die. So karma, I think, is very much, even we cannot really see it right now, but if you really think about it, it's very much, and also very logical. So like that. And then the suffering of samsara. As long as we have attachments, greed and all that. And there's kind of like the richest man in the world. We think the more wealth we have, we'll be happier. Richest man in the world, not necessarily happiest person. Most powerful man in the world, not necessarily happier person. So these things are just in front of our eyes. So if we sort of don't need a big philosophical idea behind. So we can just look at. So these things are very much, I think, relevant. So when you think about all these things, then naturally you feel what we call the sense of renunciation. Should I tell the Indian restaurant story, Vivian? Indian restaurant, my favorite subject. I told before, so maybe I can repeat again. Many of you didn't hear. So I like to compare the renunciation feeling to some kind of Indian restaurant in India. When you travel far in an Indian bus on Indian road, shaking every day, all time, with the dust and all that, and you feel very tired, very hungry, and then there's a restaurant on the roadside, dhaba they call it. The more pot they have, more dishes they have. So you count the pot. Oh, there's 7 pots, so they have 7 dishes. So then you stop the bus and you come to the restaurant, and then the curry smells so good. Have you been to Indian restaurants? Then irresistible. You say mouth-watering, and you're so hungry, irresistible. So sometimes when you look at a samsara, it's irresistible, very flashy. And then you go behind the Indian restaurant. And there's a big guy sweating on the way they're making the chapati with their feet. And then the water is not clean. The flies just flying from the toilet to the kitchen, going back and forth. Then after you see the background, you come back and then you lose your appetite. So you don't need to force yourself feeling, I shouldn't eat. Because when you see the defaults or the dirty, then naturally you feel kind of disgust. So similarly, the samsaric, what we think brings happiness, more wealth, more fame, more this, more that. Then if you really see the behind, what's going on in the kitchen, then sort of naturally you feel like, this is not really what we want. So I think what we call the sense of renunciation becomes easier. Detached feeling from the samsaric world easier. So I think these are very skillful means of helping our mind, how to turn our mind into dharma. So this is the real Ngondro, I think. Then of course we do the accumulation, Vajrasattva, all those things. It's like a method. But real Ngondro, I think, that is to make you turn your mind to dharma. So essence of the sotar, essence, the most important thing of the lower 3 yanas. If you think of the first yana, most important thing is having a sense of renunciation, and then how to be free from this suffering of samsara, oneself and the other sentient beings. Not only one self, but other sentient beings. Then that's where the bodhicitta comes. And I think the more kind of stronger bodhicitta you will feel when you see there is a possibility of coming out of the samsara. Because sometimes we talk about emptiness, shunyata, then people say, oh, everything is empty. Why we should practice compassion? So the more you understand emptiness intellectually, experience, of course, intellectually, you more understand emptiness, then you see the more possibility that people can reach liberation. So therefore, the more you understand emptiness, the more you feel compassion. One example that His Holiness Dalai Lama in the teaching, very helpful, was an example of one guy falling in the ocean, and this person is going to drown. So you're watching from here. You cannot do anything. So you feel sorry, you feel pity. Oh, so sad. Now he's drowning, he's dying. So sad. There's nothing much we can do. But then there is an island next to it. If this guy turned that way, there is a possibility that he will be survive. Then you feel more strong kind of feeling, oh, I wish he would just turn that way so he can get out of this drowning. So likewise, when we see the possibility of liberation, the more we see the possibility of liberation, then more stronger compassion we will feel, because we see there is a possibility. So then I think that's possibility, not only oneself, but sharing with all sentient beings. And that is, I think, is what we call bodhicitta. It wants to bring all sentient beings into liberation. In order to really have a bodhicitta mind, I think you really have to accept or sort of understand this possibility. And that becomes bodhicitta. Otherwise, just compassion. So this is, I think, whatever practice we do, we have to set our goal. We practice for the sake of all mother sentient beings, which I think last time I mentioned, like Khyentse Rinpoche, when he started teaching, he always again and again go on about setting our goal right. Whatever we do is not for oneself, it's for the sake of all mother sentient beings. His voice very deep. We heard this so many times. And when we were young, we said, why would you go on and on? We heard this so many times. Why don't you go to the main point? But I think it is every time we practice, we have to think. Because that's how we set our practice. Without this kind of bodhicitta mind, then, I don't know, our purpose of practice may be a little bit off the track. So in order to set on the track, I think we have to set our bodhicitta mind. So then we are on the right track, or the Buddhist path. So we heard so many times. So now the little I understand Dharma, I understand how important it is. The setting our goal in precious bodhicitta. So that's what we call the generating compassion. And why all sentient beings? Why not only me? Why sentient beings? There's some logical reason, I think. Because every kind of happiness that we enjoy, even relative happiness, it depends on others. Without others, we will not have happiness. If we were born alone in the mountain with nobody else, we might go crazy, unless you're a practitioner. So everything, I think, people who build the house, we enjoy here under this shade. People who build car, we enjoy. So everything is depend. Everything is due to others that we feel happy and comfortable. Then when you think from Dharma point of view, or Buddhist point of view, without bodhicitta, there's no way to get enlightenment. And in order to practice bodhicitta without sentient beings, there's no way you can bodhicitta, have this kind of broad mind. You just feel pity to yourself. It's not going to bring you anywhere. So the broader our mind is, that somehow sort of you feel our own suffering, our own pain less, because your mind is open up. Like the glass of water, you put one handful of salt in it, it's undrinkable because it becomes salty. So likewise, our mind, when you focus just to oneself, then our little suffering, little pain is unbearable. Even someone says some few words, you get angry because you're so kind of self-centered. Even a bonk from the car can make you go crazy. But when you put the salt, the same amount of salt, in a big bucket of water, then you cannot taste the salt. Because when you think of all sentient beings, your personal suffering becomes much less, much smaller. And the scientific research also says, people who always, normal, our friends, normal conversation, some people always say, oh, I did this, I did that, I always bring I. And some people have a little bit less I, talk about less me, I. They have less chance of getting heart attacks. So I think too much self-centered is not good for health also. So I think that's why I think the bodhicitta mind, very important. So essence of bodhicitta is what we call Ishenpen, caring for others. I think that's the right translation. So first, essence of the first yana is to have renunciation. Essence of the bodhicitta is for caring others. Then those who sort of engage into more Vajrayana practice, so there's different methods in Vajrayana practice, going into, receiving empowerment from authentic master, authentic lineage, someone who has kind of achieved enlightened mind, through which we receive the Vajrayana empowerments, introduction to Vajrayana. Then in Vajrayana practices, also more kind of complex meditation with the different deities and mandalas. Mainly, I think most important thing in the Vajrayana practice is to develop the pure vision or pure perception. Or is it pure perception? Yeah, so seeing everything as a Buddha field. So this method, once we were in another Dhamma talk in one other place, not this time but long time ago, and there was this some gentleman from African American with a kind of hat, Jamaican hat, and sitting in front of me and very seriously taking note. And then he asked a question. He said, "Hi Lama, what you are talking about is a high-tech compassion." So Vajrayana is a little bit like high-tech practice, very complex, but very skillful means. That is in order to transform one's all kind of perception to I think what we see, phenomena, everything is due to our ignorant mind. We don't really can relate to the pure perception. So the essence of Vajrayana practice is what we call development stage, which is to transform everything into the true things, which is the pure. So instead of we are sort of whitewashing all the phenomena, I think what we are trying to do in Vajrayana practice is to see the reality of the phenomena, which is the pure perception. So due to our kind of negative emotions and negative thoughts, that we're seeing everything negative. So here we are not trying to achieve or gain something. Here when you practice, you are trying to remove something, which is the negative emotions or negative ignorance. So when you remove the negative ignorance, then you start seeing the reality, which is the pure perception. So that is the Vajrayana method. And then within the Vajrayana practice, then there is a development stage and completion stage, which comes very much with meditating in the true nature state of mind. So I think this teaching here, short teaching, very much related with the Vajrayana accomplishment stage practice according to our Khyentse Rinpoche's lineage or tradition. So I will sort of go through the text a little bit, and I don't think I don't want to add. I don't know, and also I don't want to add too much to what profound word of Khyentse Rinpoche. And also, in Tibetan, the meaning of the content is much shorter, and English is already explained. So if I'm speaking Tibetan, I can speak more, but when I speak in English, the translation has already translated all the commentaries there. So here it says that semji semla tebi tse tongju mejang salewa machu kuyang ludenga ramba maying zamdo sho. So I think usually this kind of teaching is given to the people who really want to know a little bit more about the nature of mind, or we can say about the mind. And Guru will instruct to see the body and speech and mind. Physical body, the speech that we talk, and then the things we think, that is our mind. So body and the speech is like a servant. So here when we do this kind of introduction teaching, this particular kind of teaching, there's not so much explanation about the philosophical background. It's sort of direct kind of teaching. So therefore, it is simply said, body, speech, mind, which is more important. And then, of course, most of people come up with the mind is more important. And the body and the speech is like a servant. So mind controls everything. So then, when you look back into your mind, who is looking? Your own mind. Instead of looking outwardly, you turn your mind inwardly and then watch your mind. There's nothing to see, but it is clear light. Is it like that? Thought there's nothing to see, it is vividly clear. So, I will not read the English one, because then these words are beyond my knowledge of English. So I will use the simple English, that what I know. So how to look into one's own mind is without sort of fabricating, or without kind of, just relax and look into it. Just be aware. Mind zamdo sho. La. Tele namdo chi jonya manga masem rango de. So when you sit like that, looking back into one's mind, something can trigger, like sound or something could trigger our mind. Sort of our mind goes there. Or even nothing triggers our mind, sort of some thoughts arise. Look at the nature of the thought. Look back at the nature of thought. When even the thought arises, it does not obscure the nature, true nature or insight. Let it rise and let it sort of go. So quite often, Khyentse Rinpoche would compare with throwing a stone at the dog. When you throw a stone at the dog will chase the stone. When thoughts arise, if you continue with thoughts, the thought will bring another thought, there will be chain reaction. If you throw a stone at a lion, the lion look at you, doesn't chase the stone. And then you don't want to throw the second stone. So when thought arises, you look back, and then the second thought will not arise. Debe Jesu Mandangji, Mount of Ndimasu, Tekarachina Travandi, Shisha Sumdras Shesutra. So without dwelling into past thoughts, without bringing future thoughts, past thought means like, oh, I've done this, I met this, yesterday I did this, and thinking like that. Future thought, oh, I want to do this in the future things. Just without dwelling into past, without thinking the future. Looking at just present moment. It is called the fourth. It is called the four parts without three. So when you four parts without three is the past, present, future. So when you're not dwelling in the past, not going in the future, and being in the present itself, also, that is called the fourth part without three. And then look at the nature of the thoughts. Nam to ngoshe ngang changbe jenga nepa mebaje nang ya shila pene me. So one way of dealing with the thoughts is first recognize the thoughts. Okay, thought arise, and then where does it come from? Where does it dwell? Where does it go? It sort of kind of appears, but you will never find where it's born, you will never find where it's gone, and you will never find where it's due, because if it's never born, and it's never gone, and it's never dwell. But yet you somehow feel there is something like that. But these kind of thoughts will never affect the true nature. Looking at the naked Jemba. So this experience, the naked Rambab Jembandi, how to carry on in this practice. When you sit and practice, we'll do this. And then when we are into our daily life, time to time kind of remind us. Again and again, when we were waiting for a bus, waiting for an airplane, or I don't know, always there's a moment where you're really not doing anything. So you don't have to bring the cushion and altar and put it there. But just sit wherever you are and then look back. That's how I think bringing the experience into daily life, time to time. You can set your watch every hour. So by doing it, by doing like that, by training again and again, and then your thought will naturally liberate it. Sometimes we do give example of like putting a knot on a snake. If you make a knot on a snake, the snake can undo by itself. So likewise, you'll get used to that, and then you'll get kind of confident that when thought arises, naturally sort of, when you look at it, it naturally disappears. And then to enhance that kind of experience, mingle your one's mind with Guru's mind. Yelme tui sepingang nyambarjale temeche. Mingle one's mind with Guru's mind. In Tibetan we say, there's 100 teacher on the ground and one teacher in my heart. So we can receive teaching from different teachers, different masters, but there should always be one in our heart, which we call the root guru. And I always tell people, it not necessarily has to be physically there. Like Khyentse Rinpoche, I usually, to the people who wants to learn something from me, I usually recommend Khyentse Rinpoche. Just think of Khyentse Rinpoche. And likewise, many other teachers, really great masters, are very hard to find these days. So we can be, whoever guru that really inspire you, that guru can be your kind of object, or I don't know whether we can say object or what, that guru can be your source of inspiration. Because guru is who really will guide you into enlightenment. It's someone who is one with the Dharma. One, his life with the Dharma. Of course, there are many gurus like that during Khyentse Rinpoche's times. And I'm talking about Khyentse Rinpoche because that's who I felt this connection. Because you will really trust 100% that he will not kind of misguide you towards your path. 100% confident. Then you naturally feel very kind of drawn into it. If we are this kind of confident, even in our life, the smaller confidence we have, we trust the New York cab drivers will take you from destination A to B. They might be a little bit rough driver, but that's why we get into the cab. If we think the driver is a little bit drunk or something, we're not going to get in the truck. Like aeroplane, we trust the pilot with our life. It's going to take from A to B. So here Guru is like a pilot who will take from samsara to nirvana. That kind of trust. And that trust I think we find in some really enlightened master. And which many of us very lucky to meet many of these enlightened masters. And I always say, even physically, they are not in life or with us. Their teachings, their methods, their path which lay for us are very much there. And then thanks to modern technology, we have the videos, we have our photos, we can at least know how they look like. We used to get very annoyed with Matthew running around with a camera. What this monk is doing always with the camera? Why not, paying attention to teaching? Why he's always bringing this tape recorder and always recording? We didn't have good gadgets. It's pity, When we have these gadgets, now there's nothing to record. When we had some great masters, we don't have these gadgets. But at least we have some. Sometimes I use my music tape to over-record Khyentse Rinpoche's teaching. And nowadays when we listen to Rinpoche was teaching, suddenly Madonna comes up. When I was young, we used to listen. So like that. So those things now become very precious. Buddha, he said, if I die, when I leave you the Vinaya as you are, as my regent. So we have materials now, not only texts, videos, footages. So these will sort of inspire us, and we feel very close, inspired. It has to come naturally, not just Google them, or not just flyer that you believe in. So when you feel that, then that's where you mingle your mind with the Guru's mind. And ultimately, all the Guru says, you get your inner Guru, then you don't need outer Guru. So in order to get close to inner Guru, we need the support of outer Guru. Someone who can speak, someone who looks like a human, someone who we can relate to, someone who feels cold, someone who feels acts like us. In Vajrayana practice, we say that you see the Guru like a Buddha, Guru like a Guru Rinpoche or Buddha. And if you have that kind of feeling towards, really enlightened Guru, then all the practice becomes very easy. Because even the deity is a manifestation of Guru. Then you can relate with that. So hard to find, but still possibility. Mingle one's mind with the Guru's mind. Then through that you feel strong devotion. ultimate devotion, ultimate faith, he will really guide us into the enlightenment. And then ultimately, Nyeden Chogu Rangjal Ta, then you will realize the inner Guru through this kind of practice. Then here again, Khyentse Rinpoche remind us, again and again we should think of impermanence, renunciation, and then if you have the vows, the law of the conduct, follow them detailedly, not jump into the view, always follow the conduct, what is it called, law and conduct? Conduct, follow them carefully. Sabden Yingbe Nanjola, the essence practice, put practice intelligently. And Khyentse Rinpoche always recommend, and many masters recommend, Tyoba, Samba, Gomba, listen to teaching, contemplate, practice. This combine. Even in the retreat, Khyentse Rinpoche always recommend us to read the text, understand, contemplate, meditation. So then it somehow enhance our practice. Jigdo, jigjur, it will enhance one another. Tartuki, then la pepa. So here we are not trying to get intellectual understanding of different views of different things. Here, when we read a book, you read about the mind, about the practice. So therefore it will enhance one another. Then la pepa yulde yin, nyingbe tunde nyingri je. And also says that menga teke menga duzin de jebe chuten tambade ngebar topa namkhatar chela chumbu juchurji. So looks like this letter was written to some kind of Rinpoche or some master who's been practicing the way Rinpoche address. And most of the Khyentse Rinpoche's letters are like that, always advice and teachings. So we benefit from these teachings. So ultimately we say that don't expect a result fast, meditate till you die. So that Dharma becomes part of your life. So I think that's it with a little bit. It's okay? Sorry for my Pakistani English. Somebody in Napa Valley one time, I met a Christian priest and we were talking to him. And suddenly he stops and says, "Why are you speaking Pakistani English?" Maybe I have an Indian accent, so maybe the priest has been to Pakistan. So anyway, we'll keep some question answer if you have. If something I can answer, I will try my best.
Thank you, Rinpoche. I wonder if you would be kind enough to say a little bit about the Khyentse Yangtze and the responsibility you had of raising him and how he is now.
Like Chapji Khyentse Rinpoche always makes everything easy for me. It wasn't difficult. Finding him was no problem at all. And this story I like to tell. I'm forgetting. If I don't tell, I forget. You know, when Khyentse Rinpoche was recognized by Chapji Tushi Rinpoche, and Tushi Rinpoche told me to inform first Queen Mother and King of Bhutan, because they're disciple of Khyentse Rinpoche, and then after that inform His Holiness Dalai Lama. And then after I have to inform the other heads of the different schools, because since Khyentse Rinpoche is very much related with all the 4 different schools, major schools. So I went to fly to Bhutan. I met a king of Bhutan, a royal grandmother. I explained them. This is my journey, 1 week. Then I was returning from Bhutan. In the aeroplane, I was sitting next to the Home Minister of Bhutan. And he said, "Why are you here?" I said, "Oh, I came to inform Queen Mother about Khyentse Rinpoche's reincarnation." Then I arrived Delhi. I drove to Dharamsala, where his son Dalai Lama was staying. On the way, His Holiness Pendo Rinpoche happened to be in Bir. Just happened to be there. He lives in South India. That is like, I don't know, San Francisco and New York. So he happened to be in Bir. So I went to see Pendo Rinpoche and I told him Khyentse Rinpoche Yangtze was found. Then I was going into His Holiness Dalai Lama's chamber, you see? Chamber. I was waiting in the waiting room. Whole Tibetan cabinet came to the meeting room. They will have appointment after me, His Holiness. So why are you here? I said, oh, I came here to inform Khyentse Rinpoche Yangtze was born, so I came to inform His Holiness. So of course His Holiness Dalai Lama knew, but I have to officially inform him, that is protocol. So I informed His Holiness Dalai Lama and I was coming out. His Holiness Drigung Jamgon was coming in, head of the Drigung Kaji tradition, who is also the disciple of Khyentse Rinpoche, very close. So he said, why are you doing here? I said, oh, I came to inform Khyentse Rinpoche's reincarnation was born, so I came to inform him. So I went back down to Delhi, and that day Bhutan's national day. So the Bhutanese embassy invited me to the dinner party, which I happened to be. And Bhutan foreign minister and vice president of India was there. Well, he didn't ask me anything, but I thought it was a good tempter, meeting. Then who's left? That time Karmapa wasn't there. Yes. At the airport, going to Nepal, Delhi airport. I checked in, suddenly I saw there, His Holiness Psychiatrist was there. So what are you doing? I said, oh, I can. So he makes everything easy for me. And he was born just next door neighbor. I was sort of expecting I will have to ride yaks and go into, nomad. What is the name of your father? What is the name of your mother? No, it's just next door neighbor. So previous Khyentse Rinpoche makes everything very easy. So not much difficult. Yes. So I spent 20 years with previous Khyentse Rinpoche and then 20 years with Yangtze Rinpoche. And now I'm semi-retired and Khenpo is in charge of the monastery. So I try to focus a little bit more on practice and the teachings that I receive. So many teachings received, I cannot count. So I want to put a little bit into practice. So I try to do a little bit of retreat, and then at the same time, I'm trying to transmit. This is not a very intellectual unit. You just have to read the texts, the lung. So I'm trying to give lungs. And that also I learn a lot, because like Jabji Khyentse Rinpoche would start his day like early in the morning, and whole day he would give teaching and all that, And during the lung, he would give like, I don't know, last time we had a meeting discussing about his life with Dzongse Khyentse Rinpoche and few other lamas. We sort of count how many teaching he gave in one day. And he gave 13 different teachings to different groups in one day. Wow. So we thought it was normal until I start giving teaching. So like that.
Hello, Rinpoche. I've been practicing very, very long time, and I find it very challenging. My mother recently passed away. Tremendous attachment, obviously, that I have to her. And she was a person that was extremely virtuous her entire life. I always have to work on myself, dealing with patience and anger and jealousy. She never had those energies. Is there some way, even though she didn't practice Dharma, fortunately, because of my dear friendship with the Dalai Lama and bringing him to Israel and everything, she got to meet him a few times. But she never practiced Dharma. So is there anything different that I can do, or a certain practice I can do to sort of assist her in her, wherever she is or going or whatever? Because about 40 years ago, my father died, and I had all these lamas helped him, and I was very more spiritually materialist. I wanted to know where he was. I don't need to know any of this now. I just want to know, how can I help her, really? Her name was Jean Peck. And just, it's very challenging for me, probably.
Well, sometimes there's some people who don't call themselves Buddhists, but they are more Buddhist than some of us. So if she's naturally a good, kind person, I'm sure she'll have a good rebirth. So you can dedicate the prayers to her, and do practice dedicated to her. Yes.
I also just want to mention, I don't have everything right now that I'm inheriting yet, that we're both working on this, but we certainly intend in the future to have a place between Europe and India where people can stop in Israel.
Israel?
Yes, we
You
want to
from
go there.
Israel?
We want to go there, and we have homes, and we have other obstacles to getting them money from these homes. Both of us own homes, so we want to maybe have a place for them
Okay.
to come. And we just hope when this happens, we can write to you and let you know if you could change planes there or something. Because we've just saw thousands, because after I brought the Dalai Lama to Israel 20 years ago, thousands of them come to Dharamsala now, and they have centers there, and they stay there after the army to try to get rid of the mentality of the army. And I mean, thousands of these young people come there. So
You're Israeli?
he is, and I'm, my ancestors were, and I've been there 10 times already.
Okay, make aspiration.
And fortunately, I'm lucky enough to help bring the Dalai Lama there.
Thank you.
So I just hope I can bring you there too.
Okay.
I'm very happy to meet you.
Just to let you know, I've been there once already, yes.
Thank you so much for your teachings. I had two questions. I work as a therapist, and I have meditated since I was a little kid. And I wanted to know two things. One, how to help people when they are sort of using meditation to suppress their feelings. So that's the first question. Like they're bypassing their negative emotions through meditation or through other means, like pushing them down. Oh, I'm peaceful. But actually they have a lot of stuff that they're not working with. So that's my first question. And how to help myself when that's what's happening. And two, in terms of attachments, connected to what you said, but also I had been thinking the same thing when you were talking about renunciation. The thing I find, and also everybody who comes into my office, whether they're coming from a war zone or they had some trauma or whatever it is, what they really want is they want their relationship, their marriage or their partnership to go well. And I'm trying to differentiate that good bodhicitta and caring about good relationships and being attached in a way that's not helpful. So how to work with that is that a renunciation? So, thank you.
Yeah. Bodhicitta, when we include more people, sometimes in your kind of loving kindness, sometimes people feel that you are neglecting your loved ones. But I think bodhicitta means like the more you have kind of openness and loving kindness, there's someone who is near to you who benefit more. It doesn't mean that taking part of your love from your loved one and giving it to others. I think when you increase this kind of loving kindness, meditation or thought, then someone who's close to you will affect more. Like the sunrise without bias, can we say that? Shine everywhere, but someone who's closer to the sun gets better suntan. So I think the bodhicitta can work always, and it brings more love and more benefit to someone who's close to you. Yeah.
What?
Yeah, so Khyentse remind me, you are also like the kind of disagreement or family problem. It's not really like renunciation, it's kind of temperamental. So impermanence, I think. But of course, Buddhist practice can work in many levels, many layers. So here I'm talking to become the ultimate practitioner, then renounce the world and go. But there are practice where you can still practice be in the worldly life, because we are not ready to become Milarepa yet, right? So there are a lot of skillful ways, and many of, I think, the past masters teach how to practice and also live in the worldly life. So there are teachings by some of the masters how to do that.
Well, the first question I had about numbing, I know people who have, whether it's with their child or their partner or whoever, they are doing their practice over here, maybe even completion stage practice, but over here in their relationships, they're numbed and cold and not really connecting. And it seems like a spiritual materialism bypassing. So
yeah,
how to...
So I think this is very much what I sort of described. I think if we have genuinely put our practice in the right track, it should naturally give us less negative emotions. So if our negative emotions still very much alive, then maybe you need to focus more on kind of mind training, lobjong practice, which can be more practical in worldly life. Day-to-day problem you face, I think step by step, very detailed, clearly mentioned in the lojong practice. So sometimes our views go a bit too high up. In reality, we can't handle the problem. It's not that the teachings are high teachings given to a certain kind of person. Khyentse Rinpoche always says, you don't feed a steak to a baby. You feed the milk and you slowly, then you slowly, eventually when you grow up, you give them a steak. So likewise, I think according to our capacity, that's why the Buddha have taught in many different layers or levels. So according to the needs of the beings, it's not something is better and something is worse, but it is whatever you can relate with. And some of the shunyatas not even mentioned to the Shavaska, because they cannot accept. It's too big. So like that, I think, yes. It's okay.
My question very short. I'm a pianist. If you want to hear some piano playing in a bed.
Like we did Krishna Das and recently we sang Omkar.
This is from Israel?
Yeah, but he's here now because of he has we saw this and he was born in Budapest.
Todar. Thank you in Israeli.
תודה. בבקשה.
We wanted to know if you wanted to play some music at the end the way Krishna Das did.
How are you doing? I think I have to go back to the Big Apple. So anyway, thank you very
Are
much.
you going to teach anymore in the Big Apple? Because we live there.
I think finished now. Program finished.
Question, okay?
Yes.
One more question.
If we have a teacher who's quite elderly, and we still feel like when they pass, we're going to need hands-on instruction, a root guru, and we don't know when they're going to reincarnate, what would be the best way of handling further practice during that period?
Yes. Well, when your guru suddenly, spiritual master suddenly disappear, of course, because we are still have the relative world, so we feel sad and all this. But in another way, like when Khyentse Rinpoche was alive, he was always somewhere. We think, oh, today he's in Bhutan, or I'm in India, he's somewhere. But when he passed, he's everywhere. So he becomes portable. Wherever you go, he's there.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you so much for your teachings.
Thank you.
I just have a quick request. Your teaching in New York and here and the Wongs have been so wonderful. I hope you've had a fantastic and wonderful welcoming stay, and that you come back again soon.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Philadelphia cheesesteak, I have to come back.
I'll be a witness.
On that very note, having taken the words right out of my mouth, yeah, Rinpoche, thank you so very much for your wisdom, and humor, and compassion. It's been really wonderful to be with you this afternoon, and on behalf of the Wisdom Seed and everyone here who has been so generous and appreciative in having you here this afternoon, please accept this humble offering. Yeah. And on behalf of the Wisdom Seed, if you are interested in any... Oh.
Happy birthday.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Rinpoche. Thank you. Every day is a birthday. Yeah. Yeah, for all of us. And again, on behalf of the Wisdom Seed, if you're interested in our ongoing events, thewisdomseed.org is the website. The one coming up is a retreat. To Rinpoche's point of practice is the essence. So at the end of the year, we have an opportunity for a week-long retreat, and details and registration on the website. Anything else? All right. Then thank you again, Rinpoche, so much, and please come again and again and again.